Hello and welcome. Today we are studying the High Priestess. She is the third character in the Major Arcana, and we are using the Pulp Girls Tarot deck, which I love. We're going to be using the Ananda Tarot as well as the Tarot of the Orishas, which I have used in prior videos. So feel free to browse my channel and find those as well. You can learn about the Fool and the Magician. And today we're going to focus on the High Priestess, the first divine feminine character that we see in the Major Arcana. Right. So the High Priestess in the Pulp Girls deck, she looks like this, the more typical depiction of the High Priestess. She has a black pillar and a white pillar behind her, which both symbolize divine justice. She also has a crescent moon at her feet, and there's no roof above her head. So the High Priestess is lovingly known for me as someone who has no limits to her imagination or her creative potential. In the Tarot of the Orishas, she appears nude, so I'm going to cover that up because YouTube does not play about nudity. But she comes through in the Tarot of the Orishas as Yemaya, who is also the goddess of the ocean. So she rules over the ocean. The ocean is moved by the moon. The gravitational pull of the moon is what causes the waves and the tides of the ocean. So that is kind of how she is syncretized as the High Priestess in this deck. Yemaya in the Tarot of the Orishas also holds a mirror, and her eyes are covered. So she simply needs to trust and be comfortable with the unknown, which is a prominent trait of the High Priestess. The High Priestess is able to see things and plan her life exactly as she wishes for it to go, but she also has to have comfort with the unknown. And the unknown is also symbolized by the moon. The moon sheds light on things that appear when it's dark, things that we don't always see in the daytime or when it's bright out. And so we love to see the moon in all three representations of the High Priestess. This is the High Priestess in the the Ananda Tarot. So on all three cards, there's some sort of reference to the moon there. And in all three cards, we see the High Priestess kind of gazing either directly at the viewer, up toward the sky, or into a mirror that she can't actually see into. So she has to be very comfortable with not necessarily knowing that things are the way they are, the way that she sees them in her head, but she has to have really powerful belief in what she sees in her head and know that it will come to fruition simply because she's a powerfully imaginative creator. So the High Priestess, like I said, she's the third character in the Major Arcana. Because she comes after the after the magician, that's interesting that I said musician. I guess moon and inspiration, water all have to do with creativity, so perhaps that's what I'm channeling here. But the High Priestess, she is a character who has the trust of the Fool, she has the knowledge of the magician, but she has the wisdom of someone who is comfortable with not knowing, with the unknown. Someone who's comfortable with allowing things to come to fruition in their time. And the High Priestess trusts divine timing. That's part of the reason why these divine law pillars stand behind her, because she knows, she's familiar with carnal desires and laws of the earth and the land and the material world, but she's also familiar with our spiritual desires and capabilities and laws of spirit or the cosmos or the heavens, whatever you believe in. I really enjoy the High Priestess because when this card comes out, it's really calling for us to know our worth, and also know our ability, our capability, but trust that even if we can't see our reflection in the mirror, that we have all the beauty and all the abundance and all the resources required to make things happen for ourselves. This is a highly creative card. As you can see, Yemaya wears cowries and a seashell around her waist, and she also has a crown that's made of cowries that covers her eyes. For me, the covering of eyes is very special and symbolic because it shows someone who is comfortable with spirit, comfortable with walking in the dark, kind of like the Fool who doesn't know that he will be supported on his journey, but he simply has the faith and the trust in himself to know that whatever he does, he will be safe. So he doesn't know, right? He doesn't have the knowledge, but he has the faith. The thing about the High Priestess is she has both the faith and the knowledge. knowledge, which culminates as her wisdom. Okay? So you can kind of think about the Fool's journey as kind of like the lower portion of this card, kind of like this little sphere here. The Fool has enough awareness to know that his material world, his material abundance will all be provided for as long as he trusts his journey. And then you can kind of think of this light that the High Priestess is holding here as the magician's knowledge. So it's like the Fool goes on his journey in the material world and he gains the knowledge of the spirit world by when he becomes the magician. And then the magician graduates to the High Priestess when he or she knows that there's nothing that can limit the creative potential of her mind. So when the magician graduates to the High Priestess, he's taking his knowledge and integrating it with the simple and peaceful unknown, the mystery that comes with creating magic, and the mystery that comes with applying wisdom to our desires and the potential that the universe has to bring what we wish for down into the 3D and put it right into our hands. So the magician knows like the routines and the rituals, the Fool knows the trust and the faith, and the High Priestess knows the wisdom and the patience required to actually materialize what she's manifesting. Something else that I love about the High Priestess, if we go back to this Pulp Girls deck, I love her expression on her face. She seems to be very calm to me. She seems very kind of like decided that she's not going to stress out. She's not going to freak out if, the path that she envisioned in her head has a few twists and turns, because she is comfortable and familiar with mystery and with the unknown. Again, this moon at her feet kind of shows that her stability, and her feet are covered, which is symbolic in the tarot, but she knows that her stability also comes from the balance of the material world and the spiritual world, the seen and the unseen, the concrete and the abstract, right? So her stability comes along with the idea that when it's dark, when I can't see, when I can't find my way, the moon will light the way for me, okay? So she knows that her insecurities, her shadow side, the parts of her that aren't always prominent or necessarily advertised, or that aren't necessarily visible to the outer world, she knows that those things are also working within her to help her bring her goals and her dreams into fruition. I also really enjoy her facial expression because to me it indicates a calm nervous system. I think that the universe rewards a calm nervous system because our nervous system is our connectivity. It's what connects our mind to our body. It's what connects our breath to our movement, to our muscles, to our bones. Our nervous system is the only thing that we can really control. To a certain extent, there are definitely things that are out of our control that can cause fluctuations in the calmness of our nervous system. But because we have breath, because we have movement, and because we have the ability to imagine, we also have quite a bit of control of our nervous system. And the High Priestess knows that divine law requires equality. It requires balance. So if she's going to be able to, again, bring these visualizations down to her hands and down into the earth, she knows that she needs to have a calm nervous system. If you look very closely at this card in the Ananda deck, her eyes are closed. So that indicates that she's in a meditative state, or she's very calm and relaxed, and all she's doing is visualizing what she wishes to see in the world. It also brings me back to Yemaya, who has a comb in her hand. Not only does she have a mirror, but she also has a comb. So she's both conscious and aware that not everything visible is what's important. The invisible, what's in her mind, is also important. And she knows that as she's visualizing and manifesting, that she needs to care for herself. Caring for self is also what, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. Caring for self is also one way that we calm our nervous systems and bring our own personal vibrations into balance. Remember, balance, these pillars. Caring for self is one way that we bring our own personal vibrations into alignment and balance with what we wish to attract into our lives. When we're constantly nervous, constantly on edge, constantly like not really sure, or not trusting the mystery and the unknown, if we're always trying to be in control of the way things play out, we're actually delaying what we're manifesting. So I really love the High Priestess. It kind of reminds me to also just be conscious of how I'm expending my energy, how I'm expending my time, and also just reminds me to trust the unknown, allow the moon to do her work when it's dark. So I hope this gave you some insight into the High Priestess, and I definitely hope that if you haven't already done so, you like this video, go back to older videos and learn about the previous major arcana characters, and come back for the next one. I'll see you next time.